Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Pownell Select Board Meeting, January 11th, 2024, at 6 p.m. And I'm going to apologize right off the bat if I cough a little bit. I got a little bit of a cold going on, but I'm going to try to keep some cough drops going in here. So, please call the meeting to order. Board member roll call.
Angie Browning.
Bob Jarvis.
Jamie Percy.
Mike Gardner. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda, public comment, approval of the minutes, warrants, correspondence. Did I hear we don't have any excess weight permits?
We don't have correspondence tonight.
No correspondence, no excess weight permits, updates from town officials, Conservation Commission continued discussion, Old Town Hall discussion, town report dedication to discussion, social service ballot article appropriation requirement policy continued discussion and approval, budget discussion continued, ballot articles and draft town warning, public comment, and adjourn.
So moved.
Second it.
Well, any questions, comments? No. All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Any public comment, Hannah?
Nobody has their hands up.
Okay. Approval of minutes, December 28th, 2023.
So moved.
Second it.
Any questions, corrections, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Minutes of January 4th, 2024, special select board meeting, Conservation Commission interviews.
So moved.
Second it.
Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob abstain.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Minutes of January 4th, special select board meeting, budget discussion.
So moved.
Second it.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob abstain.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Warrants, accounts payable, January 5th, $17,298. $298.98, sorry. The 98 was twice, threw me off. $17,298.98.
So moved.
Second it.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Accounts payable, January 12th, $17,049.03.
So moved.
Second it.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Payroll, January 5th, $11,651.92.
So moved.
Second it.
Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike abstain. Payroll, January 12th, $12,128.17.
So moved.
Second it.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. No correspondence, no excess weight permits, updates from town officials.
I do have one from Darcy, our wastewater chief operator. I have been working on the FY 25 budget. Scheduled maintenance activities are being performed. On December 3rd, we had pump 2 fail alarm at PC1, which was caused by a plugged check valve. It was clogged with wipes, tampon strings, cigarette butts, etc. The pump was cleaned and reprimed. On December 17th, we experienced an extreme weather event which produced 2.58 inches of rain over the next 48 hours. The rain caused the river to rise rapidly and back up into a drainage ditch located in Pownell Estates, also known as Alta Gardens Mobile Home Park. The ditch needs to be cleaned Adding to the problem was the removal of the critical berm by one of the residents, or so we were told. This allowed the water flowing from the drainage ditch and the flow backing up from the river to cascade into the park, causing major flood event that covered multiple streets. The floodwaters inevitably found their way into the municipal sewer system. We estimate that over 100,000 gallons of floodwater flowed through the main station in a 48-hour period. As a result, pump one became plugged with debris. The pump had to be removed from the wet well, taken apart and unplugged and put back into service. The debris that found its way through the system and into the main station, and P4 plugged the check valve for pump one, which failed. This check valve had to be taken apart, cleaned, and reassembled before it could be put back into service. On December 19th, we located a cleanout that was left open and buried after a trailer removed in Pownell Estates. We brought the cleanout above the surface of the ground and properly capped it. This should have been taken care of as part of the trailer removal. Since we couldn't risk leaving it exposed to future floodwater, we acted quickly to fix the problem. We need to be contacted prior to future removal of mobile homes so that we can be on site to ensure cleanouts are properly capped. And that is something that has occurred more than once in the last 3 months, I would say.
Yep.
Guard met with myself and Joel as representatives of Pownell, as well as representatives of Pownell Estates Mobile Home Park to discuss the needs to rebuild the berm and the drainage ditch, as well as a plan for a ditch cleaning in the spring. The representatives assured us that the berm would be addressed on January 8th. Unfortunately, as of this date, the berm has not been rebuilt. The rain event that occurred throughout the evening of the 9th and 10th through the 10th brought less rain than expected, although there was flooding from the ditch area at Pownell Estates due to the berm removal. The water did not reach the municipal sewer system. The flooding will continue and vary in severity until the ditch is cleaned and the berm is replaced. That's it from Darcy.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna elaborate on that just a little bit. So Darcy is able to, track that at the flow for the flooding through her system. So when she tells us that that's what flowed through it, it's very accurate. We did meet there last Friday. Joel was down there because he's our road guy. I mean, I know that I don't know how to build a road. That's Joel's job. Darcy came down. We did talk to an engineer, from representative from the park on the project. Talked to the project manager. He was there. They kind of promised us the berm would be put back in place on Monday and it wasn't. I have since talked to them again. And Darcy and I have expressed our dissatisfaction of what's going on kind of down there, but it only goes so far. And she's on track. She's absolutely right. The berm needs to be put back in place. There's a little discrepancy on who removed the berm, but ultimately the park is responsible for putting it back in there. And then now this time of year is not the time of year to dredge the ditch. I agreed, it's kind of my idea, actually, not, you don't dredge in there in January, you dredge in there in, May or whatever, June.
Spring, yep.
So we did survey the situation. I think we have a pretty good handle on what's going on down there with that. I think that all of our departments are aware of the road department, the wastewater, the select board. We're all aware of the flooding that goes on. And we're trying to keep it from happening to the park residents again. And Darcy and Joel, that was their main concern was, Darcy's worried about her system, of course she is, but she's also extremely worried about the park residents experience another flood when we can try to prevent it. So I think it was a great collaboration of kind of all the town forces meeting down there and working together and, coming up with some sort of a plan. Anybody, you guys have any questions on that, what I saw, or anything at all? Okay.
So if they don't put the burn back, even though that you suggested for them to do it, is there something that we can do as a town? Can we contact this, something to help them get involved? Give them a timeline.
I think we could probably go to, I think we could probably go to Agency of Natural Resources if we have to. You know, it's probably our next step. I'm confident that in the conversation that I had with Billy on Monday, Billy Smith is the project manager for the water line down there, and that's when the berm got removed was sometime when they started the water line. Now, like I said, there's discrepancy on who removed the berm. Doesn't matter, it's still the park's responsibility to put it back in there. So the way we see it, so. Yeah, we're ready to go. Joel, that's why I had Joel down there. He knows the right people. As Darcy does, you know, I think we're in a pretty good position. I emailed Darcy that I had talked to Billy on Monday and that I had explained to him that we as a town over that last storm, she was concerned, this past whatever it was, Monday or whatever night we got all the rain. I lose track of days. I can remember Thursdays when we're here. That's about it. I did express to her that I expressed to him, that if something happened and we had some catastrophic damage or pump failure or whatever, that we were gonna try to recover our cost through them. You know, I think that was Darcy and I, Joel kind of discussed that a little bit and, you know.
Should that
I
be
don't think-
followed up with a letter in writing, just so it's understood?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Jamie. We can probably send it to Patriot Holdings, you know. I know, I'm sure that Billy relayed that information. I couldn't get a hold of the, representative from Patriot Holdings that's taking care of the park. She's on vacation, so, you know, there we are. I went as far as I could with that, but you know, at that point, but I think a letter to Jen would probably be a good idea. I think we have her address and stuff. And then we can, you know, certainly it will solidify the fact for sure in writing that, listen, we're not going to tolerate this kind of stuff. Come down here, fix the thing. I mean, literally, like I said, I'm not a road builder, but I could build a berm and I could, a couple of dump trucks and a bulldozer, an excavator, a bucket loader. And if it took you more than one day down there, you probably should look for another profession. Just saying. I've done some berm work, but not extensively for a living. Anything else? Okay. Pownell's Conservation Commission continued discussion.
So I put that on the agenda just to kind of see where you guys are at with it, if you're ready to appoint the members that you interviewed last week or not.
And I wasn't present for it, but it was five. Again, it's five individuals, right?
Yes, so.
And what
the
I saw
board-
from the letters of interest, in my opinion, they look very good. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the interviews.
And that's what we said we were gonna put as a board was 5 members, correct?
7,
Oh, 7.
5 regular, 2 alternate.
Okay,
So there's 2 alternate positions open still,
okay.
if you appoint the 5.
Angie, do you have anything from the interviews you want to talk about?
No, I didn't know how we were gonna, if we appointed them, how we were gonna, like a chair, vice chair, secretary, or what we're gonna let them
Usually
do.
they do that when they meet.
They do that, but you should, for the term, maybe we should assign their terms though,
Right,
because they need to be staggered.
that's what I was looking for. I thought I had it written down, but
Yeah.
Jamie, did you have anything else?
Oh, I think the 5 that came forward, would make a diversified board. I'm glad that we got some interest from the town.
I think it's a nice mix of people as well. A good-
My take from the 5 interviews was that it's a very diverse group. of people with some exceptional knowledge and understanding of what we, the board, are looking for that group, that commission to do. I think there's some extremely valuable people, all five that came forward. You know, we had a 10-minute interview, so it was fairly quick, but you know, they kind of had their ideas together pretty well. So one of the problems that we do have is the length of the terms. I had a thought on this. I had a thought mine personally on this one. Rather than, if we decided to appoint all five, maybe we break it up. Sort of like the select board is broke up. Where we have two members that are a 1 year and three members that are for 3 years. And obviously we'll have to put one of the 3 years as a 3-year, one as a 2, and one as a 1.
Right.
Right? My personal thoughts and feelings on this were, personal thoughts and feelings on it were if we were to appoint all five of the, interviewed candidates, that we let them determine. We tell them that's what we're looking for, that's what we wanted to do.
Mhm.
We let them determine who's on for what term, like.
I was gonna say,
Longest length you want is 3 years or 4?
usually it's 3.
I would think 3 years would work better for a 5-person board, just like on the select board, as Mike was pointing out. So I think you have the 3 years would be initially 1, 2, and 3. So one of the 3 years is going to get shortchanged at a year. Because in order to make them up once every 3 year, 1 3-year position up every year, one of them will be up in a year, and then they can decide. I agree that they can structure it. We just need to give them the instructions. I think we can approve all 5, let them decide who their 3-year positions are, which one of those would be up in a year, which one of those would be up in 2 years, and which one would be up in 3 years. If they're reappointed, then of course they're reappointed for 3 years because that's what's up. And then the other 2 are just 1 year and they'll have to come up every year. I think just like the select board, that makes the most sense to me.
Any other thoughts?
I agree with that.
Jamie?
No, that sounds good.
And do you have a preference, meeting nights, or leave that up to them as well? And I'm also hoping that they might be able to do their own Zoom for Hannah. If not, I'll probably take that meeting on.
I don't have a preference, but you know, I mean, that's kind of hard for us to.
Just tell them what nights are open other
Right.
and see where it goes.
Did we talk about how often they would meet? It seems to me that the cadence would not be more frequently than, say, the planning commission, which is once a month. But that seems like, I suppose that could be left to them and say that it's not more than once. It's not more than once a month, and they can decide if that works for them. Or make a request to the board if that doesn't work.
I think my opinion is I would think that given the listening to the candidates who interviewed, the people that interviewed for it, I would think that I think they may, just my opinion, they may go at it a little bit right at first, and maybe they meet twice a month.
Right.
Going, I think they were all pretty ready to get going.
Yeah,
And then I think they're gonna work it out to where they meet, you know, once a
Right.
month or whatever after that. I think, it sounded to me like they had, each one had sort of an agenda they were looking to get done type thing.
they had some ideas.
But they're also on board with what we're looking for as the board. They were super good about that.
So minimally once a month, I guess
I would
we could
think.
say.
I would
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
And as needed,
Hmm.
because
Do
until
we want to,
structured.
are we gonna approve? I think we should approve. Are we gonna do one at a time or should we do all five? What's the board's pleasure?
Just efficiency, we only have five, and I haven't heard any objections to any one of the five. I think we could approve all five. Just my suggestion.
What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve all five candidates that the select board has interviewed for the Conservation Commission.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All's in favor?
Angie, I.
Bye-bye.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye.
Mike, do you want me to share the names one more time? Just
Yes, please.
Please.
I'm right here.
so, the first one is Jeannie Alexander, Nathan Fowle, Megan Randall, Catherine Cooper, and Bill Cottrell.
I would like to have a motion, outlining, exactly what we talked about for the terms. Three-year terms, one, two-year terms, and all of the term lengths to be decided by that board, because they're all new. And, then they can report that back to the board or to Tara. And, with the 3-year terms being split up as one term for 3 years, one term for 2 years, and one term for 1 year at this time.
Yes.
Just for,
And actually, maybe the way to say that is the 3-year terms, one expiring in 2025, one expiring in 2026, and the other one expiring in 2027.
That makes sense. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
second,
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bye-bye.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. So we now have a conservation commission. With 5 members. So get to work.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. Get to work.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Old Town Hall discussion.
So Bob asked me to put this on the agenda, so I'm gonna let him take it away.
Did we skip town report dedication and discussion
That's next.
That's next after,
after Old Town Hall discussion? Okay, it's
Yeah.
the sequence on the website. All right, I wasn't thought I had more time. I'm a little nervous.
Sorry, Bob, I'm gonna.
Is that in presentation mode? Can everybody see that?
yep.
All right, well, first, thanks for giving me the time. I will be talking fast because I want to get through this quickly. I don't want to take up too much of the board or the town's time on this. But I did want to talk about the Old Town Hall, the discussion and the moving forward with the community center. And that's really the topic that I want to talk about. So as introduction, first of all, I appreciate the time given for this discussion, and I greatly appreciate the dedication, focus, and the work the board and town has provided over my 6 years serving in Pownell government. My hope is that this presentation today generates some discussion, some ideas, enhances town involvement in major decisions, and enhances the transparency and processes essential to good town government. So when I first ran for the select board, one of my main motivations was to ensure transparent and citizen-inclusive leadership. Unfortunately, I do believe that as a board, we have lately fallen into some questionable practices, and I want to address those today. I feel like we've lost our focus on ensuring that everything we do, including our decision-making process, our research and discussions, are in the open and inclusive of as many voices as possible. And I believe we're moving way too fast in the rapid expansion of our local town government and responsibility, and we're doing so without enough citizen input. That's my opinion, and certainly welcomed for discussion. But one specific expansion I'm concerned about is the creation of the community center in the old town hall building. So first I want to talk about the history of this idea. On July 27th, there was an agenda item warned as Old Town Hall use ideas. At that meeting, the board was given a presentation that outlined the possibility of using the Old Town Hall as a new community center. So that was the first time the board and therefore the public was presented with the idea. I have to say it was a really nice presentation and a really nice job with that. It generated a lot of enthusiasm, and rightfully so. The board was presented with data from a survey that was conducted with the assistance of Vermont Healthy Communities. That survey had 200 respondents. The data from that survey was used to state declaratively that Pownell has an urgent need for a community center. I'm not sure, even at the time, I wasn't sure I agreed with urgent need, but certainly did show a need for a community center, or at least for some community involvement. It was also stated declaratively at the meeting that we could not sell the property. And I think that deserves some more discussion and examination. It was stated that we're going to be responsible for maintenance and upkeep without any options for relief. At the end of the discussion, a motion was made that our executive assistant fully research the idea of making a community center and then come back to the board. The exact language of that motion was to have the executive assistant, and I'm quoting, research and come back to us, end quote. And that was the first and last that I think we've heard the community center discussed at a select board meeting. So at the time, of course, I didn't feel any urgency to make any changes because we were going to be presented with more costs. The costs that were talked about and presented at the time were minimal and mostly to be incurred with or without a community center. I think we need to investigate that a little bit more and understand what those are. Understand fully what those costs are. Okay. So potential costs and sources. I did want to talk a little bit about this. At this point, I believe the town has been taking action toward the actual creation of a community center, including applying for grant monies towards the building of a kitchen and cooking supplies, and has stated the intention to request ARPA funds to do major repairs to the building, such as repairing the foundation and repairing the floors and replacing the floors and the paint. We're also reminded of the need for mold assessment and remediation in the building, which can be costly. And I think those have come up in previous discussions and estimates. Sometimes remediation requires the removal and or replacement of structural elements such as beams, walls, and I would say that the estimate that we got it was over 6 years old now, was $90,000 for the mold in the crawl space. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I believe that involved jacking the building up in order to get that access. So that was definitely an expense that not only is something on the table, that was used as part of the justification for the new town hall. The benefit was we wouldn't have to incur these expenses. I would point out that previous workers in the building did complain about respiratory issues. So some risk and remediation could involve partial dismantling. The indication that we need more money for repairs, foundation work, and that ARPA might be a source for those. If we proceed in that direction, we're going to have to be very careful about the sequence of those tasks, because you don't want to do work on the building and then have to rip it out in order to get access to the crawl space. The slide that I'm showing now, some of you may remember, some of you may not. This was slide 9 of the original pitch that the select board gave for the new town hall. Important to note the ongoing maintenance costs of the old town hall and the health issues costs associated with the mold remediation and estimate for permanent removal. So this ongoing cost of current town hall is actually referring to the old town hall since this slide is 6 years old. I added the bold to kind of highlight, between 2012 and 2016, we spent $31,000, a little bit more, for air purifiers, mold testing, et cetera. And this is also where we got the estimate of the $90,000 to remediate the mold. Again, that being used as not having to spend that was used as part of the justification for the building you're sitting in. And I wanted to be sitting in tonight, but I'm sick and I didn't want to get anybody else sick. My intention was to be there, and I apologize, I'm not. But there were other things on here as well, just things that need remediation. Now, before I talk about the pros, cons, or at least a comparison, high level, very high level, deserving of a lot more input and a lot more discussion of the benefits, the benefits of private ownership versus ongoing public ownership. I do want to talk about the survey. And some of the risks on the survey. So the survey does give us a lot of good information, but what was stated there was what was stated in the presentation was that the skateboard park, for example, doesn't get a lot of use. And I want to talk about that for a second. First of all, the survey did show like 30%, which is a lot of use. And the other thing I want to talk about is surveys like that are one source of information. They can be valuable information, but but it's one source. We really need to solicit, I believe, a lot more citizen input. With that in mind, I did reach out to the Center Street Church and asked them for some information, and I was very pleasantly surprised that they had a lot of information about that skate park, which I believe is a valuable town asset that we worked with the Center Street Church to get, and they've done a lot of work on to make sure that it's getting used. So I want to share some statistics that I was able to quantifiable statistics that I was able to get from them. Since the inception, there has been 205 requests for driving directions to get to Center Street Park. They have a Google page. It has been viewed over 125,000 times. The Instagram page maintained by the church has 175 Instagram followers. And just in November of last year, the Google page has had 220 interactions. So that little skate park is actually bringing people from outside into Pownell. And these are people that could be spending money. I think it's I'm pretty excited about that, and it speaks to the effort that we're putting in for developing the town green and the town center. I think it's a good effort, but I do want to talk about the community center versus a private business. So one is we're already at a point where we're going to need either ARPA money or some other money to do foundation, to repair foundation and do those kinds of repairs. I don't think we really talked about that when we did the initial discussion back in July. I'm not sure totally, and I think we do need to make sure that we understand and it's documented why we believe we can't sell that building. If I understand the two issues, it's a well and a repeater. It might also be some confusion about the ownership, but I think that deserves some discussion as well. With a community center, there is going to be more work needed, and we're finding more work as we go. If we're able to sell that property, a new owner is responsible for any and all the work. If it's town owned, it's not on our tax rolls. If it's a private business, it is billing and parcel on the tax rolls. Ongoing maintenance, no town maintenance. Staffing and oversight costs. I think there is going to be, it's not just the staffing to maintain the building, it's actually managing a community center. That's not trivial. A private business would be no town involvement. Now the the plus side on the community center is it's going to provide free services. I do believe those services, and we do believe there's probably other places in town where services like that could be provided. We have a lot of the library has a spot. We have the churches have some of those amenities, and there's other options there. And I think we need to explore those options. A private business is a local attraction. It's can provide amenities, and it's potential employment for some people in our town. It brings commerce, which is what I believe is our biggest need. Economic development is a far more pressing need for our town. There are many places that offer those other services. I think I already talked about that. We even did talk about the schoolhouse portion of the new town hall as a community gathering space. So it's not like we don't have other options rather than maintaining an entire building. I mean, the Legion might be an option. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it may be. But I think we need to investigate them. What's desperately lacking in Pownell is economic opportunity and economic growth. In my opinion, our town center would be much better benefited by a private business. And I think that's the way it's always been talked about since we initially talked about building a new town hall and the problems associated with the old town hall. So I think we need to do a little bit more investigation before we formally approve of a community center. So I think conclusions and recommendations. So again, I want to stress that was an excellent presentation given by our executive assistant. That was really nice. It garnished it garnered a lot of support and a lot of enthusiasm, and rightfully so. It was a very nice presentation. The board, again, and the exact wording was to approve additional research to come back to the board. The words community center have never been in a motion. So what I think we need is fully itemized costs and estimates: mold remediation, foundation, flooring, painting, repairs, kitchen installation, increased town staffing requirements, and ongoing maintenance of the building. Those are things that are going to be absolutely needed in order to understand what we're getting into. Clear and documented reasons why the sale to the private entity is not possible. Again, the well supplying the firehouse and the repeater. We might even be able to sell that property with easements, in which case we wouldn't even have to remediate either one of those things to sell the property. And I believe we need to schedule public hearings on ideas for the town hall, old town hall, including a community center. Following public hearings, we need to schedule a select board meeting with an explicit vote on the decisions that come out of public hearings. I understand the need to want to move forward quickly, but we can't skip steps. Public input is absolutely required. My general recommendations for the board is we've talked about this before, and myself included, we violate it too frequently. Never vote on a cost initiative when warned as an initial discussion. Votes for major decisions need public hearings and proper warnings. What was warned as initial ideas for the old town hall resulted in a discussion and a calling for a vote to move forward with an idea that was presented for the first time. We didn't solicit alternatives. We didn't talk about anything else. It used to be that grant applications would go through the board for town projects. The grant application would be brought to the board. We would have public discussion on the application. We would view the letters of support of the application itself and compare those to the town needs. I think we need to get back to that. I think we always need to be willing to hear public discussion, especially when we know there's disagreement. As a town, we make better decisions together, and we should never avoid those opposing viewpoints. I want to bring up an example here because it was, it was an individual that I don't always see eye to eye with, but it was really an excellent example of how to run a public hearing. Many years ago, there was some citizens who wanted to see changes to a proposed town plan. Our current town plan was a result of collaboration between different people that didn't agree on what should be in it. Our then chair of the planning commission chaired a public meeting, a public hearing on the town plan. He knew that there was disagreement in the room. He also had a vested interest in getting through the public hearing and getting the town plan approved. He didn't necessarily, in fact, I don't think he did, agree with what he thought he was going to hear, but he didn't shy away from it. The people who came to that public hearing, he knew that there was dissent in the room. He knew there was disagreement, and he spoke. He paused. He asked for public input. Didn't get it. People in the room were a little coy. Nobody wanted to be the first one to speak. He spoke a little bit more, and he stopped again and asked again for public input. Again, everyone was a little coy about stepping up. He had to ask, I believe it was 3 times, it may have been 4 times, before people started coming out. And then when people started talking, more people talked, we got a lot more input. Even knowing at any point, he could have legitimately said, well, I guess there's no discussion then, and checked off, we did the public hearing like we're supposed to. But he didn't do that. He made sure that those voices got heard. And I think we really need to make sure that we're hearing from all sides before we make major decisions like this. And my next recommendation is going to be that the select board minutes should always contain the exact wording, using quotes, of any motion. That's the only authorization we have to move forward, and we should never exceed the authority given. That's why we're careful about the wording of motions. And again, we need to make fact-based decisions. As government representatives, we should never take disagreement personally. It's not personal. There are alternate uses for that space, and we need to hear them. In the end, a community center might well be the appropriate use of that space, but we won't know until we have fully estimated costs, heard alternative viewpoints, and considered all of our options. I think we are moving too quickly with these, and sometimes it feels like we're trying to get it through with as little resistance as possible. I don't think that's good governance, and I don't think we should be doing that. And then I want to close this up with a blast from the past on a bit of a fun note, but also it makes a point. These next 2 slides were the 2 slides that were helping to sell the town on the current town hall. This is what it is, and that's back when that's what it was. We had always talked about that no longer being a burden for the town for all of the other health issues and other reasons of maintenance of that building. And then what it could be and what it is today is this new rendition and this new town hall. I think we can all look at this picture and be very proud, every one of us, the entire town government, as well as our private entities, our churches, the Pownell Historical Society, the citizens that voted this in, that this is now a reality. Remind you that the Pownell Historical Society did just a lot of work garnering support for this project. It came to a reality. The board did a lot of work on managing the project. Mike, you did some really excellent work moving this forward, particularly when we had a contractor just quit right out from under us. We could be very proud of this, but it did take a lot of people here. And what you're looking at here, and I'm going to mention a name, as well as the Pownell Historical Society, this was the brainchild of Pauline Gutlow, who put this together, had the idea of that schoolhouse, and now we're sitting in the building, and I wish I was sitting in it, but I'm not, sitting in this building. This has come to fruition. This is what we can do when we're not afraid of dissent, when we can listen to opposing viewpoints and really push projects forward once we have the full vetting. Remember, there was a whole lot that went into, there were a lot of people against this, there were a lot of people for it. There were a lot of obstacles to get here, and there was a lot to get us, and even to get this project approved took years. So let's not move so quickly that we're not hearing our citizens. And that's my that's my my whole presentation, and thank you for indulging me.
Thank you, Bob. Board have any questions for Bob? Any questions?
Can I respond with a few things?
Questions from us or not?
Let me,
Could take questions.
I will, Jane, let me go from,
That's fine.
let me do, I'd like to do Tara, and then if you guys have some questions, sure, you spent time to come here. Absolutely. Go ahead, Tara.
So I feel like the motions were quoted wrong because, let me make sure I have the right packet here. I don't think I do. Because I have the minutes where Angie motioned to quote, give permission to Tara to run with her idea and start looking into grant opportunities. So that was just one thing I wanted to point out. The second thing was that there was a lot of mold remediation done on the building. So when I had additional mold inspections done, I was given a much lower estimate. I don't have those figures right now, but I'll make them public in future. I also did a MERP assessment with the BCRC in an attempt to get an energy assessment done on the building, which would then help us with a lot of the repairs that need to be done. We are still kind of in a waiting game with that. As far as not being able to sell, I was given that advice from a realtor because it is on the same parcel as the church. It's a very small parcel that is likely not subdividable. It also has, as Bob mentioned, our wastewater repeater. The well provides water to the fire department, and our Pownell Center marker is right in front of the building. I mean, like,
Yeah.
right in front of the building. And I also feel like it's a historical building for the town that we wouldn't want to see sold. I mean, that's just my opinion. And the only other comment I had to make was the exact wording on the minutes. I mean, obviously the board reads them and approves them. So if the motion isn't worded right, we need to make sure we're telling Hannah to correct that.
I agree with that, and but I would say going forward, any motion should be put in quotes. And watching the meeting myself, Angie started with the motion to let Tara run with her idea, but Mike, you corrected her and said to research it and come back to us. So that was the actual motion, was research it and come back to us. Those were the exact words of the motion. So we need to be, but again, I'm going to go back to, we as a board, and we've talked about it before, have said and committed that we weren't going to bring something up and vote for something the same day we brought it up for initial discussion. And that's just not a good way to do it. Now, I was enthusiastic about the idea too. It was a really nice presentation. It was a really nice idea. And I think it ought to be, but it ought to be talked about with other options, not the only option on the table. And I would, rather than hear from a realtor, I think the real question is, if we can't sell that property and turn it into a private entity, and that's what's narrowing us down to one, let's hear it from a real estate attorney, not just a realtor. Let's find out what our obstacles are, what we would need to do to sell it. And if it's truly impossible, we need to document that and make sure that that we have documented it, and that it's not just we don't think we can sell it. Let's make sure we can't, because we talked about this for 6 years, that getting a new town hall, we could sell that building. And most of the enthusiasm for the last 6 years has been in turning that into a private business. So we just need to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And like I said in the last bullet point on that presentation, in the end, the community center might be the way we go, but we need buy-in. We need to hear opposing viewpoints, and we can't shut them down when they try to speak. And we can't go into these meetings with our idea and trying to get it through the board as quickly as possible. We need to hear from our citizens. And that's something that Nelson was very good when he was on the board about making sure that the dissenting voices were also heard, that the disagreement was heard. And he was good about it, to the point where even if you cussed at him and called him a jerk or whatever, He would take it for a little bit. I mean, you had to have some decorum, but he would know that there was disagreement and he wanted to hear it, even if it wasn't his position. We need to do that too. We can't be pushing things through for quick approval. That's not the best way to go about it.
I certainly appreciate that opinion. My frustration, I think, comes from it being 6 months later. That makes it very challenging to go back and find all the evidence that I had at one point. And then on October 26th of 2023, I announced to the board that I received a $5,000 grant to install a kitchen in the community center. And there was no mention of any concern whatsoever at that time. So
These are the risks that you have when you push things through without proper vetting and proper input and listening to our citizens, and without proper wording on the motions. The risk of putting throwaway work and doing things that weren't approved, that's what we risk. So I'm going to stick to that. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop pushing things through the board on the day that they're presented. That's my opinion. And that's and we the board will live in perpetuity with different members, and I'm only one of 5 votes.
Anybody have anything else? I have a couple things. In your presentation, Bob, I heard where you were very satisfied. No, that's not the right word. That's not the word I'm looking for. You were very open or indulging in a community or a town center and village green in this area. Is that a fair statement? That you were very supportive, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, very supportive of a town center, village green in this area, incorporating the new town hall, the skate park, the church, and that this whole our cemetery, Center Street in itself. Is that a fair, did I see that? Did I read that the right way? Did I hear that the right way?
Yes, but when we say a village town green, I don't mean what I don't mean is expanding government ownership, right? Acquiring more property, acquiring more scope. That's never been my position. I think fundamentally, though, that's where you and I, Mike, disagree the most. I believe in private ownership. I believe in more liberty, less government influence, all that stuff. And then you see government as bringing good things to the people.
No, that's not true. The government's not, that part's totally not true, but that's not what we're here for tonight is to debate our position on that. My question is, and now that you brought that up, how are we as a board supporting buying up or acquiring or whatever more property? We already own that property. We're not taking anything off the tax rolls. We already own it as a town.
Well, yeah. So, Mike, if you want to make an argument to go ahead with the community center, and I think that's
I
what
have
you're
some,
doing,
Bob,
and certainly we can do
I
that.
have questions, Bob, I have some questions. I have some questions and just things that I didn't understand. Is that, I mean, if you don't want to answer them, that's fine. I won't ask them. I just have some questions.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
I guess.
Am I
how-
supportive of a town green? Yes.
That's not. Doesn't, and maybe I'm wrong here. If you had a private business in that building that we already own, that's in the center of our town, 100% in the center, because there's a marker right there. It's already in our historic district. It's part of our historic area. And I'm not disagreeing with doing the research, okay? That's not where I'm going here. Not at all. I'm just trying to get a handle on where you're coming from especially 7 months later after you voted to move forward. But doesn't that defeat the purpose of having a town center and the historic district in the center of town?
Not in my view. In my mind, that does not defeat it. In fact, having that marker there might even be a selling point. Maybe it means we can't sell the property. I don't know. I'm for private ownership. Those are the things that last longer. They're not on public rolls. And to my vote, I voted specifically for research it and come back to us. That was the motion. So saying I'm changing my vote 7 months later is not accurate.
Okay,
I am all
That's
for
fair.
researching it and coming back to the board, and thereby the town. Something of this magnitude, in my view, unless you disagree, I think requires public hearings.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's a good point. I think, you know, and I'm not gonna speak for anybody else. I think that's a very valid point. As far as that goes, I guess I'm a little concerned over coming back 7 months later. You know, we were here in October, they came back to the same thing. And now we're reopening and rehashing, you know, this situation. And
Okay, but what is the estimate for the mold remediation? What is the estimate for the foundation repairs, as well as replacing flooring, walls? I mean, that's the stuff that we approved for investigation to come back to the board. So again, community center, that phrase has never been in a motion.
And that's fair.
Again, so at this point, I think we owe the town some public hearings, and we need to hear from people about what they want in that building. And I would like a definitive answer. It is possible that we're stuck with the building, but I want to hear from a real estate lawyer, not some speculation about the size of the parcel. And we're already working on understanding the ownership arrangement of the town hall, the church, and what is that legal determination. So we need to hear that back from Bob, I guess, on what we can and can't do there. I would like to see the question that we posed to him and any response he may have given us.
So I thought Bob Fisher actually answered that question as far as the town hall, the old town hall building, as Tara stated, between the part that it was connected with the church land and all that. And that was, personally, I thought the sale of the building had been taken off the table a long time ago by the board.
Can I see
why
that?
that's-
Well, all I'm asking is to see that quantified.
So I will bring that to
Yeah.
the lawyer with the church discussion, if that's the board's pleasure.
I'm-
That's not a,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the transparency and all that. It's funny that this didn't come to light until recently when the church discussion came up. In my opinion, is when some of the townspeople have reached out and asked the question. They didn't ask anything about the town hall. They wanted to know what we were planning on doing with the church. Because some people didn't understand that we have ownership of the church. So this part here that you're,
I'm not sure that we can make that statement definitively, and I think we still need to do some research to understand the ownership.
and that's fair, but I'm just
that's
saying.
what we brought up, right? 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
That's exactly what we said. We're gonna research out who actually owns the church once and for all, because, you know, 150 years ago, there was a handshake agreement between two people that said the town owns part of the church.
I don't think that's an accurate assessment of
Well,
that
I don't think,
agreement
I don't think
came about.
there's, at this time, I don't think there's a definitive answer that anyone can give us on who owns the church property whether it's the town or the church. I don't, if there is, I hope they come forward and they save us the cost of going to Bob Fisher. Because other than that, we have to determine who actually owns that piece of property. Because as long as I've lived here, there's been 10 different, at least 10 different variations of who owns it and who's responsible for it and who insures it. And so if the town of Powell doesn't own the Center Street Church, why are we paying insurance on it?
Well, hang on.
Just out of
Does-
curiosity.
Well, my understanding, and I may be wrong too, but you know what? I don't want to speculate.
I don't either.
Let's
You know
get
what?
definitive answers.
We're getting off topic on the church. We're off topic on the town hall. I'm gonna stop that discussion right there. On the old town hall, I do have some, residents of the town who are here tonight, who have come in, and I'm gonna let them speak if they choose to on the old town hall. I don't want to get into a huge debate, but I will certainly give you ample opportunity to speak, whoever. Just please state your name before you speak. Go ahead, Jenny.
You were Pownell, Vermont, no interest in a debate, I just have some
No, I,
to think about. 7 months is not a long time in government, so, I've been going to the Bennington Select Board meetings and listening about Ben High and the skate park, and these discussions went on for well over 2 years. 200 people on a survey out of a town of 3,500 doesn't seem like a lot. I didn't know anything about a survey. Did you mail it to all of us? I don't think so. That's counting on people going to your website. And that's asking a lot of power. We all know that. What free services are being suggested for a community center that I've never heard about? Why do we need a community center? My understanding, it was part of the argument for moving the old schoolhouse to this town hall was that it was gonna be able to be used by community members. If I'm wrong about that, that's just a real memory snap, because that was one of the reasons I voted anyway. And you say you received a grant? Doesn't the select board have to sign off on grants? I even had to select board sign off on grants when I did stuff for my old employment, and that wasn't part of the town. But if I did a grant, the select board had to approve it. So was it in the minutes for the grant to be approved? If there was a grant already, there's already a grant awarded.
So
That's all, and then, I mean, the other stuff I would say for the town hall meeting about it, which I mean, not town hall meeting, the lost board. A
I'm
meeting,
glad I'm not the only one that does that.
a meeting,
The meeting,
hearing.
public hearing?
Yeah, that's, the other stuff is more for the public hearing. Thank you, David, that would, that's all.
Anybody else have anything? Mike, have anything?
Good.
Jean,
Thanks. First of all.
can you just state your name? Sorry.
Jeannie Alexander. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. So thank you. I just have a couple of questions. So if there is going to be a public hearing at the old town hall, and if you're seeking public input, is it possible to also list times when residents here we could go in to the building? Some of us maybe haven't been inside of it before. It might be interesting to think about possible uses that the public is interested in if we could look at the building. So I would like that. The other thing I was just curious about, has there ever, and it's probably total ignorance on my part, but does the Powell Historic Society have a physical location?
they're right below us.
Right below us.
It's right below
And I
us.
actually reached out to them today for their advice and opinion also, but I
Okay.
haven't heard back yet.
Okay, so I was just wondering, because I was thinking like sort of right in the center of our historic center, it might be kind of cool to have a historic society maybe in that building as a town museum. I mean, that might sound boring to some people, but I go to it. Thanks.
Thanks, Jean.
Jim has his hand up.
Oh,
Jim.
okay. Jim,
Hello, people. Jim Costas, North Mason Hill Road. First of all, I'm not sure how this ever happened, but I really appreciate Bob's presentation, and it kind of hand in hand, and it must be a coincidence that I too also have a very concern about how this whole process has moved forward. And I know you guys have known from the past year, I have kept saying the word, a little more transparency needs to be happening. This here, yes, has moved fast. The minutes are never right that I have read, and I'm not in the meetings to object to them or have a chance to change them, but there was a motion, and then at the end of that discussion, I said, well, you know, maybe the best thing for that building is to demolish it. That doesn't get into the minutes. Since Tim has left, the format of the minutes have changed to almost bullet points that don't really express exactly what people are saying. And that's got to change, all right? In the same way I've also said about things put on the agenda. When the discussion came up that there was a grant that was approved, that wasn't on the agenda. It was in probably a discussion that the executive assistant was saying to the board what had happened. These things need to be put on the agenda, and the townspeople need to know what's happening. Too much is happening and not happening in a meeting, and then find out later on a motion was made. It gives me
Jim, can you, this is kind of different public comment, I think. Can you try to stay on the old town hall discussion? And then I certainly can entertain this when we come back to public comment.
Okay, I totally understand. I'm sorry about that.
That's
But
okay.
it comes to the point, I think the discussion for the old town hall needs to be brought to the public. We need to do a lot more research. I know I sent you an email last night stating a lot of different kinds of questions that I have before even a decision can be made, which then should be brought to the townspeople to say, this is where we stand, this is how much it's going to cost. And I think even if it comes to the point that if there's a problem with the well, if there's a problem with the repeater, if we need to move the building, if a private citizen wants to buy the building and move it somewhere else, maybe the historical society can work in there and get some kind of donations for that if we need to keep that property. And I have no problem with keeping that property. It's just that I don't want to spend any more of my tax money to upkeep a building that may not really be necessary. There may be other places in the locations of Pownell that we can have a community center that's more, it's a little bit bigger. I know you guys said that health people can come down and they can use that building. I think it's better if we have it maybe expand the bus system that's coming from Pownell up to Bennington so they can go to the actual clinics. There are a lot of different questions and items that need to be discussed before we can go out. And unfortunately, I didn't remember hearing anything about a grant, but all of this has to happen before a grant is approved. And as someone has said, and I think it was Jenny, anywhere that I've seen when a grant is approved, there are stipulations to any grants. The board somehow has to approve acceptance of the grant, knowing that there are restrictions that need to be held for that grant. And I thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jim.
No, I just want to say that the conversation was brought up about a grant, and we did say, yes, go ahead and seek that grant as a board.
Was that on the agenda?
No,
I have to go back and look to see exactly when. I think
Right.
it was October
It
or,
was October 27th, I think, if I remember the date.
that's what I'm saying. But I do know it was brought up and we said yes.
Okay, I mean, go to the video because it's not going to be in the minutes.
Any more discussion on this? Any more?
No, I believe in transparency too. I thought certain aspects of this had been already covered. And we moved on and to the next step, so.
Okay, there's no more discussion? My glasses, so I see where we're going. Town report dedication and discussion. Yeah,
So I was requesting that we dedicate the report this year to Margaret Lilly, sorry. I was thinking Margaret Lindley Park, but it's Margaret Lilly, sorry. We would include her obituary and the photos that were provided by her family. This is what they provided, so I'll just, kind of like we did for Ronnie last year, just to do a nice.
I think that would be an awesome dedication.
With her obituary.
Her family's been here for a long time and she did a lot for this community.
that's very
The
nice.
the other suggestion I had was I would like to include a special thank you to the gentlemen, their names are Bill Goodman and Anthony Leo, that do the work at the Welcome to Vermont sign that's on State Line. They do a lot of work seasonally, like 4 times a year. They take everything out, they redo the display, and I know a lot of people stop there and photograph. And so I was trying to figure out if we do the dedication to Margaret, maybe we could either do a photo on the cover with a special thank you or just a special thank you page included in the report.
What's the board's pleasure? Let's do it in 2 separate motions.
I'll make a motion to dedicate this year's town report to Margaret Lilly.
Second,
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I,
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye.
And then if, I guess, board, if you would like to see a picture of the Welcome to Vermont sign on the cover, or do you have other cover ideas?
Is that a group or just a couple of individuals? 'Cause-
2 individuals that live on State Line Drive.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep, no,
gonna take and say a thank you that you had the whole,
yeah, it's the 2 of them that do it.
I'm sorry, are you suggesting the picture of the sign?
Yeah, with a little note under it that says special to them, or we could do a whole page in the book.
Well, I'm thinking, I like that idea. I like the idea of the sign and then their names mentioned in the front. And you might even have a blurb on the inside that gives just maybe a paragraph of the dedication. Or not the dedication, we're not dedicating.
The thank you.
We're, the thank you.
Okay.
put that in motion.
I'll
I'll make a
entertain
motion. So moved. I'm not, I'm gonna have to defer to somebody else for the motion. I don't have the names in front of me.
Sure.
But the motion ought to be, the thank you for those individuals. And
With the
include
new-
the picture on the cover.
So can we have the motion please read accurately?
So I believe I'm going to second Bob's motion by a picture of the new sign with a thank you to the individuals. A little paragraph also, what they've done as we enter our town. Is that clear enough or?
Is the paragraph inside the town report or on the cover? I'm confused.
I don't think there's
Well-
room for a paragraph on the cover.
It'd probably be inside. I
Just
would-
want to be clear.
Yep. I would say in.
I would think inside, but you know what? I'm not sure that needs to be in the, I think as you're putting it to print, what looks better.
Yeah, and I'll bring the whole report probably next week for a special for approval, so.
All right, thank you.
I have a motion. Your second?
Second,
Oh, you seconded Bob's motion. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely correct. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, I.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Social service ballot article appropriation requirement policy.
So we've discussed this many times. The only new information I have is from VLCT that we can request the forms, we can redistribute the forms if we so choose. However, we cannot prevent someone from going on the ballot if they meet the other standards of collecting the signatures.
On the statute,
Right.
correct.
So they have to collect signatures. If they collect the signatures, they go on the ballot. But if, so it can't be required, it can be requested.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I changed the wording in the policy. You'll notice it in the folder. Now says requested instead of required, but he said because it's public information, we may want to just let taxpayers do their own due diligence.
Mhm.
So that's up to you guys, how you want to. If you want to request the 990 from agencies, or if you just want to let taxpayers do their own due diligence.
My thought on it is we ought to request it. I think that was a really good suggestion that we had, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request. But to that point, if it's a request, they don't have to do it, but that's fine. I think we can ask. That's my opinion.
I think that's where we were, as a board, we were leaning. That way we would have the great word of transparency. When anybody asks a question, if we had actually seen it, we'd all be on the same page.
The only thing that I see is if they don't provide it for us, we can't stop them from being on the ballot.
Right.
If they get the signatures anyways.
But we can state that.
Whether or not they have the 990.
Right, and we just, that's why I changed it to requested. We're
Yep.
requesting it, it's not required.
No,
So if they fail to produce the 990 and they get the 100 and so many signatures, we can't stop them anyways.
mhm.
No, but I would hope that they would produce it if we
Oh,
ask.
Now we're asking
Only
for it.
asking for transparency to our taxpayers.
And if they fail to, and then our taxpayers come and ask us and we say, well, they didn't submit one,
I'm
then they can ask why.
So I'm going to ask for a motion on that, please.
So we need
So I
to
can send it to all the agencies and give them like the biggest heads up. Or
make a motion with the amended language to the ballot requirements.
Is the motion that we change the language for the 990 requirement to requested, not a requirement?
Yes,
no, I think we need a motion to approve the policy as
okay.
it's written.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's the policy you sent to us in the email, right?
Right.
That's the one you're looking for?
If I were said that, make a motion to approve the policy for ballot items.
For social service agencies.
I think it's make a motion to approve the social service ballot article appropriation requirement policy.
Second that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is that the motion in a second?
Mhm.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, Bob.
All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bye-bye.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Budget discussion continued.
Anybody have anything for budget? I have a couple of questions, but
I don't have anything.
Oh, I
We
mean,
did it all last week.
haven't really,
so do you want me to start with my questions then?
Yep.
Okay. Do we want to increase any of the transfer station revenue lines by increasing the cost of permits?
What's the cost of our permit now?
$50.
So we were thinking of 6%, right?
The 6% is an increase across the board.
Yeah, she's talking about permits. I think the permits should go to 55 or 60 bucks each. Probably 60 bucks would be easier. Easier to make changes than it would be for, for the cash customers versus $55 or $53 or
It will help close the gap a little bit, but I noticed some of the rules have changed. Tom sent me updated rules for next year, and it looks like he may be changing some free dump day rules, like there's only one load allowed, but he's gonna allow for sofas and things like that. But I didn't see where he's increasing price of the permits at all.
I know he was gonna change what was allowed at free dump day.
Yeah, and it's only one load versus the two now.
But
Hasn't, I thought, last year I thought it said two, but.
What's the board's pleasure?
Well, I think just to put it in perspective, right, the $55, if that's where we're going, is a 10% increase. $60 is going to be a 20% increase. But if it helps close the gap, I'm not giving you an argument for or against, just want to put it in context.
And we did go up last year, we went up $10,
We went from 40 to 50,
40 to 50.
Yes.
Yep.
and what's the proposal now, to 55 or to 60?
There's not a proposal on the floor.
Michael was just suggesting.
It was a suggestion to go to $60, but that was just for kind of easier bookkeeping than anything. It was just a thought.
I mean, the costs are increasing. I don't like increasing, obviously, but and I don't think any of us do, but at the same time, we need to be able to pay our bills.
We're incurring this, the transfer station is incurring a 6% increase from Casella across the board for disposal.
So if we went up 10% on the permits, that would offset it. How much do we think?
How many permits does he get again? I'm sorry. I should know this.
I wanna say it's like 400, but I don't know for sure.
I don't remember. That was on there last week too. I don't have
I
my
know, I'm
budget.
having a hard time remembering.
I don't have my budget papers.
Was it on the budget paper?
Yeah.
This one here?
Mm-hmm. Look under transfer station. I'm pretty sure it was on there.
Oh, under the permit. Oh, the next
Oh,
one.
under the permit, yes.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
Great.
You want to help with all my budget papers? I don't need those tonight. Yeah, I do. Actually, it should be under income, right?
Transfer station.
Yeah, she's the
Yeah,
revenue.
but it's under revenue, not
Awesome.
right here. Transfer station stickers.
So she budgeted 25,000 in there.
And she budgeted 25,000 last year.
And we've got,
Year before.
now we've got
and,
20,600 that we've brought in.
right, fiscal year 23, it was 20,600, but I think that was at $40, right?
Yes.
It
515.
was what?
515.
Okay, yeah, so about 500 permits in 23. She budgeted 25,000 for then. At 50, so that's 500 permits again, so she's figuring 500 permits, so that would bring the revenue theoretically, if we went to $60 to 30,000. That's $60 a permit. If you were to maintain that 500
Right.
number of permits. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to increase the permits to $60.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. I hate to jump it up another $10, another year, but our overall costs are
Transfer
not
station,
slowing down.
transfer station's gotta start getting a balance somewhere along the line. We've had that discussion last week.
Yep, no, I understand.
Yeah, for sure. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bye-bye.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye.
Okay,
think
next question.
Probably true that was a reluctant aye by all four of us.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't think any of us are trying to cost the taxpayers more money, and we had that discussion last week. It's just the transfer station, the balance between income and outgoing. I'm not trying to make it an even Keel, none of us are, but the balance is so far out of proportion, we have to do something.
And it's possible that that might be enough so he doesn't have to raise the cost per bag.
Well, I
right
think we
away.
still need to raise that cost too, but that's just my opinion.
I would just like to say that in Bennington and at, can't think of the name of it, Lake St. Catherine, because that's where the camp is.
Well,
Wells,
Well, thank you. I couldn't think of the name of the town. They don't, have, permits. Everybody is charged through the taxes, one fee. Everybody, if they use it, they use it. If they don't, they don't. Maybe that's something we can look into.
does Wells do, they don't do town sponsored pickup, right? They just-
No.
Yeah, they still have
You even to
private.
pay to have got brush and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know Bennington is the same way. You don't have to pay for a permit.
Well, I think we talked about that last week
You have to
a little
show
bit,
like
right? In our, in
And I
the
think
discussion was.
We'll start looking into some, maybe some
Something like that.
feasibility studies and
Right.
things like that to
Mhm.
Yeah.
start making those decisions.
Right, right before, none of us here are transfer station operators by any stretch. And I think a feasibility study is definitely
And we discussed that.
needs to be done. And I actually discussed this with someone last week, Tara. I think the BCRC or maybe it's the Solid Waste Alliance already does a feasibility study on that. I'm not positive who it is.
I'll look into it.
May.
But I think somebody already does that. But I think that's something we need to think about spending some money on to try to get that balance a little closer.
Okay, on to the next question. This one's gonna be just as much fun. You ready? Contract law enforcement amount, are we keeping it, decreasing it, increasing it? What do you wanna do
So
with it?
since we got the answer, we can say it out loud, right?
Well, I can say, you can say it out loud, but I will also say I looked into all of the ballot articles back to 2010. We never voted to anything to do with contract law enforcement that Hannah or I could find.
What do you mean for on the,
Because you guys were concerned that it was on the ballot that we contract specifically with a company. And it's
With the
not.
Bennington County Sheriff's Department.
oh, it's,
Weren't sure how that,
yeah, because, if they've gone up so much, they went up, what, $24.43 an hour. So they're at $72.50 now. At 30 hours is $113,000 a year. At 25 hours, it's gonna be $94,250 a year. At 20 hours, it's $75,400. And at the old rate was, I had this number correct, 4807, correct?
That wasn't last year's.
Yeah.
That was the year
a
before.
couple years ago, yeah.
All right. So what is,
Last year was 50 something, right? 53?
All the stuff I have with me, I don't have my sheriff's contract folder.
I think it was 53.
Go get it if you really want it.
no,
But I think
so,
probably,
How was it?
yeah, so my suggestion was, this is my suggestion, and like I said, I'm only one person. Try to keep it as close to what we already have, is to drop it down to 25 hours a week. That would equal $94,250 a year. And I make the suggestion that we use the Vermont State Police as much as possible. And when the time comes that we put it out for bid, you can put it out to bid for the state police, the Windham County Sheriff's, Bennington Police, and there's also a couple of private people out there that, we could put out for bids. I think we definitely need to put it out for bid. And then I was looking into, like, we do have a constable, but we'd have to train them, equipment, cars, guns, a place to put a person if they needed to hold a person, car insurance, radio, camera, maybe a dog, maybe not. You probably have to have a second person with him at all times. You wouldn't want him going by himself.
That second person is gonna have to be trained.
Exactly, trained. You have to pay insurance, 401k, life insurance. Let's just keep it on and
That'll cost more than,
on. So right now,
I think we're talking about budget, right? What do we,
Right.
what is the board's pleasure on budgeting for the law enforcement for the town? Right now, in the budget, it's $113,000. last year's budget was 75,000, correct?
Yeah,
I'm trying to operate from memory.
I'll even let you have mine if you want.
No, that's what it was.
That's what it was.
So, furthermore, at 75,000, we were under budget. Significantly.
Oh,
Because we thought it was gonna be, we did the budget for 4807.
Right.
But they went up to 50
50 something.
right,
now,
And the previous year, they weren't doing the full 30 hours and.
Right.
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 There was
And-
reason.
But-
We're still getting our free time. Aren't we supposed to be getting 3 free hours a month? Do they put that down that they're doing that?
I don't know for sure.
We get,
I
we
believe
get
so.
governor highway safety
Safety
time.
time we do?
I think they do actually, Mark.
I didn't know if they put that down on
I think they
our.
do.
I think they do on the timesheets.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Mhm. So we were severely under budgeted last year. Of what we actually are gonna spend.
mhm.
And this year we have figured it, and thank you to the sheriff's department for giving us that number to try to make it much easier for us to budget so that we're not under budget. But to cover 30 hours, their proposed rate is 113,000. So what's your pleasure? Angie just gave you the numbers at 20 and 25 hours a week, so.
So for 25 hours a week, we cut it back 5 hours. It'd be $94,250 a year.
So savings of $9,000 roughly.
No, 90 is savings of almost 10,000.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
because it was 113 if we go
113.
with the 30 hours down to 92.
yeah, it's 13, it's a savings of $19,000
Okay,
from 94 to 113.
My personal opinion is we go to 25 hours and we budget 94,250.
That's how I feel. I feel comfortable there. Like I said, I think that, the Vermont State Police need to do their job as well and be down here.
Well, unfortunately, we can't force that.
No, I know.
No, I just want everyone to know that we can't force them to be here. Unfortunately. And I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know you're not.
25 hours. And, that's not where I'm going with this. I just want to make sure we have all of our cards on the table.
I,
And just
Yeah.
as we're talking about that, I just want to remind the town and potential criminals that we are also a Second Amendment town.
Yeah.
yep,
I do think we have some options, I don't know if they would ever come to fruition, but I think there's options of putting it out to bid. I don't know who would bid on it. I don't know, but I think we owe if we're not bound to one organization, and by this no stretch or imagination means that we're not happy with the performance from Bennington County Sheriffs. It's a financial decision that we're tasked with making, to try to do our best for the taxpayers of the town.
mhm.
So these are tough, budget items are tough decisions. So there's no doubt about it. And it's hard. It's really hard.
I-
So do I have a motion for $94,250?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bob, aye.
Jamie, I,
Mike, aye. And to expand on that, I think that we do try to go out to bid to form some kind of an RFP.
talking for 2025, right?
Contract's up what? June
It'll start July 1st of this year.
30th.
Yeah, it'll go, our contract, we're under contract now until June 30th. So whatever we RFP would go out to bid or would start on July 1, 2024.
I stated following years because we got numbers for that July contract. Is what we just put in the budget, correct?
Yes,
July
for
1st.
start July 1st.
Okay,
Yep.
so, and those numbers were factual on an open meeting, so to take and do attempt to do a bid for this one come July 1st, that would be not a good process,
Conflict of interest.
yes, by the board. Because we stated the value.
Well, it's public knowledge.
I
Well,
understand
it's
that.
not,
but
it's
the
not
way-
public knowledge until after you sign the contract. Jamie's absolutely correct on
But
that.
because we've vocalized everything
Mhm.
in
You're
open
absolutely correct on
session,
that, Jamie. I shouldn't have vocalized the,
I'm just,
you're,
But then you have townspeople that want to know what the price is.
and that's fine.
I understand.
After you sign the contract, it's
Right.
totally fine, but
Right.
before you sign that contract, we have put Bennington County Sheriff's Department in a negative position to come in and bid. We have given an advantage to Joe's Security Company to come in and bid on that this year. I agree with Jamie totally.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to keep it.
No, you're right.
Straight and keep
No,
us on the level.
Jamie,
I'm so sorry.
It is a good point.
No, it's not your fault. It's just,
No, it is my fault because I was trying to, because for Jim, trying to make it public.
no,
after the contract is signed, the contract that we are under now is 100% public knowledge.
mhm,
The contract that's not signed coming in to July 1 of 2024 would not have been public knowledge up until we signed the contract. Mhm.
Get it now.
Yep.
it's sad financially, we have to go backwards when a couple years ago, we were hoping to go 40 hours a week. But that is the situation that we're in, unfortunately.
And when we were talking about that, it was $40 an hour.
Yes, no, that's why I said.
We are
that because of
almost
the financial
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, we're almost double from where that was. And what was that, 5 years ago?
Yeah. But
I do believe that moving forward for fiscal year 26, I think that should be something we need to really focus on, Tara.
Yep.
And you need to rein this in. At least me, because I'll be there.
Make her feel
I'll be there, and I'll be.
Feel really
I'll be there-
bad.
I'll be there next year. I'll be there in
Appreciate it.
December and January next year for sure, so. Jamie and I will be there in December and January next year, so please bring that to our attention. Yeah.
Okay.
I know, I get it.
So it's budgeted to change our health insurance coverage for employees, dental, vision, life, and health insurance. My question to the board is, do you want to make a motion on the health insurance coverage now in a budget discussion, or should I bring it back to the next regular meeting for you to?
Let's do it next regular meeting.
Motion.
Put it right on the agenda as an item for that meeting.
And then as far as the benefit that's offered to employees that do not take the insurance, I'll bring that back at the same
Well,
time.
that's what I was just gonna suggest,
Okay.
because I'd really like to do both at the same time so that everything is right there out in our face and we have everything,
Okay.
all the information right in front of us. So when you bring that back, would you, I know you already have it done, but maybe would you break it down into a chart of how much each,
What do you mean?
like family, like how much?
Each plan, like
Yeah,
family and family plus spouse, family. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you just break down how much life insurance is, how much, per employee?
Yep.
I'm not trying to add more work because I know you're
Oh, that's fine.
taxed for sure, so I get it. I just want to have that all right in front of us to make an educated decision. And it would help me for sure. Come up with a number for and that's just so we can come up with a number for the employees who don't take the insurance. If we decide to do that, I mean, it's not written in stone, so. Could we also find out surrounding towns that do or don't offer that stipend?
Yeah, it's in the VLCT book that I had last week, or the week before that.
I thought it was.
thing. It is in there. I can get like a summary.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not trying to add more work to you. I know better.
Question?
The next regular meeting, though, not right now.
I have I know where you're at.
I'm just enjoying the show.
I know where you're at workload, so I'm trying not to, I'm trying not to add to you. I know.
So let me get the town report done and I'll be.
I know. No, I know that. Any more budget discussion, Tara?
No, I think that's it, unless you guys have something.
No, I've been over it so many times. Half the stuff is now embedded in my head. Ballot articles and draft town warning.
Okay, so it is in the folder. Bob, I apologize. I'm not sure if I sent you a copy of it or not.
That's okay. I'll try to follow along and
So it's basically the same as it has been in previous years. There is one change at the beginning that I just reached out to the LCT about to make sure the wording is right. Ellen said another town emailed on the listserv and said, oh, there's a loophole if it's not worded right with your tax due date on your floor meeting warning.
Okay.
That if it's not worded right, they can use it as a loophole somehow with tax sales. So we're hoping to add like a little bit of the due date. Taxes will be due by this date. So I checked with VLCT to make sure on that one. VLCT's advice on cemetery ballot article was to use the wording reserve fund per 24 VSA section 2804. So I changed that wording, and then the only other ballot article we had was the voters authorized the select board to change the name and purpose of the transfer station building fund to the transfer station capital projects reserve fund. In order to allow for different uses such as paving. So those were the only select board
Yep.
articles, unless you have something to add tonight.
Don't believe anything else come up.
The
Would you
cutoff
like,
date's not until the 19th, right? For anybody to change the.
yes, so this could, so at the end, you'll notice I added the Pownell Fire Protection Association because they're seeking an additional ballot article for 20,000, but they don't have their signatures turned in yet, so I put it on here, but it might come off.
Right.
Let's see the libraries.
That would be Article 33.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's pretty much all the same. Now, I guess I'm gonna be brave enough to ask, do we want to put the old town hall on the ballot this year? For that discussion.
I think that needs more discussion from my standpoint, what we're gonna do with it.
Maybe go in the direction of like more of public hearings and not necessarily a ballot.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be better.
And actually, I just want to mention that BCRC is doing a project with us. We had a grant for it to look at the entire village center, and they will be doing more surveys and that stuff. So we'll have more input.
and that's the municipal planning grant is what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
that, and they can make recommendations about what to do in that property, and they're gonna have a focus, at least I hope, on economic development.
Anything on, any more on ballot articles and draft town meeting?
Oh, I just found it.
Or town warning,
I
sorry.
found a huge error. We aren't voting at the firehouse.
That's in here.
Voting here.
Yes,
That'll change.
that'd be interesting.
Good check.
That one.
Did we ever hear back from the fire marshals, the occupancy of this room?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's 45.
that's what I was thinking that.
So, yeah, it's 45. And we really, sort of hash out those facility use agreements. You know, as Jenny mentioned, it was advertised that we would use this as a community space, so.
Right, and I apologize to you, Jenny. I meant to mention that after your comment, and it totally slipped my mind that we were working on the facility use policy, and that was gonna be part of this facility
So I'll bring
So,
that back next time too.
If you're watching this later on, I totally apologize. I meant to bring that up when you were here. Totally slipped my mind.
Anything else on the warning?
I was looking for more errors and I don't see any. So I'm good. Nothing else. We'll open them up to public comment.
So I think we have just one in the chat. It looks like a citizen couldn't get her hand up and the microphone not working. If it's all right, I'll read it and I'll announce who the person is. But it's right there in the chat. So public comment from Donna Lozon. My microphone is not working. My comment is, it seems there are a lot of unknowns. Now, actually, what I understood was she was trying to chime in earlier when we were talking about the old town hall.
Okay,
So my comment is, it seems there are a lot of unknowns, and I have brought this up before. The board really should have everything they need before going into any projects. If it has been 6 to 7 months since the old town hall was brought up, it seems that would be plenty of time to have a public hearing and allow for the taxpayers to weigh in. Citizens being informed and asking questions is our right. Please don't lose sight of that. And again, that was Donna Lozon's public comment.
Thank you, Don.
Jim has his hand up.
Jim has his hand up.
Yep.
Any other comment too?
Am I all set?
Yep.
Okay, Jim Kosis, North Mason Hill Road. I just wanted to, on your budgets, I just wanted to talk about, first of all, I think increasing the permits and increasing the permits and increasing the permits every single year. Now we're up to not the 10%, but more than that, up to the $60. I think it's just going to cause more people to say, I'm not going to buy a permit and you're not going to let me in. So I'm going to just throw it on the side of the road, or I'm just going to pile it up in my house or something like that. I think you're defeating the purpose of, and it goes down to supply and demand. I mean, don't keep increasing the price because you think you're going to get the people to bring the garbage in. You're going to defeat it by increasing the price, and people are not going to bring the garbage in. Second of all, I'm very confused on if you under budgeted the sheriff's department. If you have a contract, the contract is for a certain period of time. I mean, I'm not sure what the period of time is, but how do you under budget something that you're negotiating now for the next year? I mean, it's just confusing that. And if hold it, Mike, give me my minute. If there comes to a point of there's a timing, then correct the timing. But I don't want to see, I mean, first of all, like I said before last week, you got a sheriff that's sitting on Route 7 for 2 hours or 3 hours. That's our time that he's eating up to give tickets on Route 7. He should be out patrolling our roads. Number two is, I've heard in the past that if there's something extreme that happens in Pownell, the sheriff's department will go there along with the state police, but we get charged extra for the sheriff's department going there. Maybe that's got to be put into the wording of who goes there, what do we get charged? Are we getting charged for our patrolling of the streets and stuff like that, or are we being charged for something else? Number two is, how can you go to bidding? The state police is not going to bid, and I'm not going to have a RoboCop out there because we don't want the sheriff's department or because their rate went up. I don't want a RoboCop out there bidding against something. So, I mean, just get that off the table. The second or last thing is, the road and the general budget are not that big. People have to understand that it's the school budget that's making our taxes high. If you guys need to spend more money to maintain the town and give us the security that we need with a sheriff's department, then you need to do that. Don't try to undercut because you're trying to give extra benefits to this, or you need to do other things and stuff like that, and take it away from the sheriff's department. If we need the sheriff's department, we need the sheriff's department. We need them for the 30 hours. We don't need to go down to 25 hours. You guys are the ones that are there to make sure that our town is protected, not that just our taxes are low. If you can explain the reasoning for the increase, I'll accept the increase. If you just throw the increase out there and not say anything about it and say, this is it, I'm not going to accept it. And that's one of the things I've gone over the past 10 years is saying, explain what you're doing. The picture is what you're trying to do for our town, not just, okay, I don't want to pay the taxes. I don't want the taxes to go up. So you guys have got to put your mind to, and to what needs to be happening for the town, to run the town and everything. And I just got to add one more thing. I love the way that the word transparency has been used so much tonight. It's just interesting now that that subject came up, it is the keynote of everyone's comment. So have a good night, guys. Later.
Thanks, Jim.
Ben,
I'm gonna answer your question on the budget part of the sheriff's department, Jim. I'm not gonna debate it because it's really not debatable.
It's all right. I expected it, Mike, from you.
Well, no, because when you listen to my answer, you'll totally understand
Okay.
why we were under budgeted and why we were trying not to be under budgeted this year. Okay, I think you will, Jim, and if you're not, then certainly ask the question. I wasn't trying to be rude at all.
That's right.
I just think when I answer it, you'll totally understand. So in past years, we have sat here in December and January and budgeted for a budget, and you know this, that starts on July 1 of the following year. So we have never had, in the past, we never had the proposed number that, and I'm going to use the sheriff's department as an example, because that's what we're talking about. We've never had the proposed number that they were going to up their rate to. This year, we reached out to the sheriff's department and we asked them what they felt their proposed rate was going to be, for the contract starting July 1, 2024. They gave that to us. That's why we were under budgeted so bad last year, is because when we changed sheriffs from one to the other in last year's, in the year before's election, their rate went up significantly more than we anticipated, in our budget, Jim. Does that make sense? I'm sure.
It
And
makes
it occurred after the budgeting.
Right.
it makes total sense. And I mean, that's where we've moved forward now to say, what's your rate going to be in July, in January? Because the same thing happens in my last employment of everything. We have to base the budget for July 1st based on information we're getting in January. And the state has come down and said, you have to give certain amounts and stuff like that. But that's a separate type of thing. But
And that's exactly what we did this year with the sheriff's department, is we asked them for their rate. That's why it went from 75,000 to 113,000, is because they did give us their rate. And which we appreciated, because we could actually have an accurate number instead of a guesstimate of what their potential raise was gonna be.
Okay.
So that's why it's always, I mean, historically, I don't know, I don't remember, Jim, the year before, 2 years back, but last year we were significantly under budgeted because their rate jumped. I think we figured it was gonna go to $48 and then went to 53 or 58 or something like that. We just didn't have accurate information. And honestly, shame on the board, for not having accurate information in the past. We didn't ask for it. And this year we asked for if they would provide it for us, and they did.
In defense of the board, sometimes when you ask that question, you're inviting an increase. So and we did go a couple of years without increases on the sheriff hourly rate, and then over the last 4 or 5 years, we're getting substantial increases almost every year.
yeah, I'm not attacking the board, but at the same time,
Fine.
I am attacking the sheriff's department because of the new sheriff that's coming in. I just hope once you're able to announce publicly after you have your executive session to approve the rate that they're saying they're gonna be, that I would love to see in a public meeting, the board or the sheriff's department or the sheriff himself come to the meeting and personally explain why the rate is increasing so much. Because I don't think I mean, is that a private entity that it's out there? If not, if it's a public entity or something that he's supplying to a lot of towns and stuff, he should be able to come to the town and explain publicly, not just to you in a session, but explain to me in public session why he is increasing the rate from the past sheriff. And I only use that as an example because that's why the rate's increasing. And as you said, from one sheriff to another sheriff. But I think it should be something that he should be asked to come and explain it to us fully of why the rate is increasing, because I don't want the hours to go down to 25. I haven't seen a sheriff up here, and I brought that up before that, and I called them to say, you know, I haven't seen a sheriff come up my road. I'm retired now, and I am here in my property, and it's not too hard not to see a sheriff drive up the road because I see other people come up the road. I think it's time for you to ask questions of where are you patrolling, and don't spend your time on Route 7 because we're not paying for that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm sure if we send a letter of intent, he will come and answer those questions, Jim.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I think Jean.
Jeannie, did you have
Sure, just a couple things.
would you just state your name
Yes,
again? I know you did
sorry.
it. No, it's okay.
Alexander, 346.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I did have a thought about the transfer station. And then the balance between incoming and outgoing, it sounds like there's some discrepancy there. And I don't know exactly what that means. But would it help at all if we did have a method, something like Bennington's, for example? They weigh when you go in and they weigh when you go out. And so there's a very specific and set charge there. So I don't know if that would help more accurately capture the amount of waste that's going in. If that would help at all with revenues from that. That is one thought, because I do have a permit for the transfer station. And I have also notified in Bennington, it's just a very different process. Just a thought there. The other thing that I'm really struck by is, again, going back to this issue of the sheriff's department and the budget item. One, I personally don't feel a strong need for increased hours in the sheriff's department. It kind of goes back to Bob's point earlier. People in this town seem pretty well equipped. I just don't feel, I feel very at home in Pownell. No place is perfect. I don't ever feel like, God, I just wish I saw more police out because I'm nervous being here. I just, not at all. The other thing I would say is, please, when you open this RFP up, as a citizen of this town, I'm gonna say, I would absolutely not be comfortable with having a private security company take over any sort of policing in this town.
I agree.
Part of my background is, you might know this about me, but I'm the former head chaplain at a maximum security prison. Okay, and I will tell you, in our state, the privately run prisons, I was able every single day that is not where it was. I have never seen that degree of indifference or incompetency. And the horror stories are awful. I can provide any information in general about the differences between privatized security and public. While the sheriff's department is not perfect for sure, I would much rather deal with an agency that is, you can hold directly publicly accountable in some ways than private security.
My personal opinion, I agree totally with that. So.
I agree with that. It was just my suggestion that we put it out for an RFP.
Oh, my, because reality, that is an option today, and I think that's an option that needs to go away, quite frankly, but that's
So I'll amend what I said earlier about the the about the kind of town we are, and just make it very clear that Pownell citizens have always looked out for each other.
Right, absolutely.
And let you know that we don't have scales, but they measure by cubic footage. Depending on what type of material, there's a layered charge. That they attempt for the weight. For construction versus.
Sure, it would help us with increased revenue. to do
Right.
that.
No, I just wanted to let you know, we do have a system in place. It's just,
Well, I think one of the things that, not to get off on a tangent, but I think one of the things that would benefit us greatly is to do a feasibility study of the transfer station. Because from a professional agency, not that our transfer station operator is incompetent, that's not it at all. Tom does an awesome job. It's just, that's what, in my opinion, that's what would be, and they may come in and say, you guys are doing everything wonderful. Great, mate. If they didn't, if they said you could do this, this is gonna increase your revenue and decrease your expenses by 7% here and 15% over here, and pretty soon you're, and I'm just being theoretical, obviously, right? If we spend a little bit of money on that, rather than, well, if we think maybe we should do this, maybe we should try that, and this is a good idea, and I think, but there's people that do that stuff. So. Anything else? Any more public comment? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
oh,
Second,
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Angie, I.
Bye-bye.
Jamie, I.
Mike, aye. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Bye, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bob.
Bye, everybody.
You.